president cannot put troops in for law enforcement in the United States.
The option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort.
Active duty troops are trained for warfighting and not policing.
We are not in one of those situations now.
Use of U.S. military people inside the United States. We don't sign up for the internal thing. We sign up to protect the away game, if you will. There are other people very capable of taking care of the home game, law enforcement, people like that.
You don't do it with the Army because it's illegal.
We are not allowed to help enforce the law. We don't do that.
We've had a distrust of putting the Army into our streets because the police have a difficult job, but the police understand the Fourth Amendment. They have to go to judges. They have to get warrants. It has to be specific.
Combat Marines are trained and exercise in just that, engaging in ground combat. They're not trained and they do not exercise in crowd control.
It was not necessary to employ active duty troops in response to the civil unrest occurring in our nation.
The president cannot put troops in for law enforcement in the United States without either declaring the situation an insurrection or being asked to do so by the governor of a particular state.
That is the clear line. We're joined by veteran Paul Rieckhoff, CEO of Independent Veterans of America. What do you see there in those clear limitations from leaders and military experts across the spectrum?
A bipartisan consensus that has gone back pretty much generations. I mean, what Trump here has done is breaking all the norms. He's violated a compact that the military has with the American people. I believe it's illegal. It looks like the courts will rule it's illegal. And he's shattered a really important protective glass around our military. You don't break that glass unless it's absolutely necessary. I was a National Guardsman deployed here in America after 9/11 because we had been attacked just a few blocks from here. That's the kind of situation that normally warrants the deployment of our National Guard and our federal troops. And you see a definitely bipartisan consensus, but it even goes into, I think, more specifics around what we're seeing in Los Angeles. If you are going to do it, who is in charge? How do they coordinate? How do you differentiate? And not only has it been there a breaking of the barriers, and I think an overreach and an abuse of his power, they're also failing to do basic transparency and communication with the American people. For example, just standing up and saying, I am the combatant commander, I am the head of this operation, whoever that person is, designated by the president and the Secretary of Defense, and to daily brief the American public on who is that unit that you just showed? What was their mission? Where do they come from? How do we hold them accountable? That's also an important American standard that we're used to seeing. If you think back to the Iraq War, the Gulf War, everything in between, there's normally a conversation with the American people, and that's not even happening either, which I think is especially troublesome.
When you look over all those leaders saying that, there have to be people around Trump who are warning against this. We hear so much about how the second-term team is different than the first, but we still have four-star generals around. Would you expect that they're giving him that same counsel that we heard there in the montage?
I hope so. I mean, that's what's expected of them. That's their duty right now. And I hope and encourage that to happen behind closed doors right now, and even externally, if it's possible, that they can speak out in whatever way they can. I think now is a point for them to do it, so we're not just pulling footage from years ago. And everybody that you saw there in that montage as well, everybody from President Bush to General Kelly, they should all speak out again now and update the American public on how this is unprecedented. And it also, I think very importantly, Ari, I think you and I talked about this a little bit this weekend, it endangers everybody involved. It endangers ICE agents. It endangers the police. It endangers the troops. And it lowers the confidence that the American people has in all of them, which puts everybody in a dangerous situation and makes all of us less safe. So the number one thing the commander-in-chief has to do is keep America safe. And nothing about this situation that could very easily go sideways is keeping us safer.
Well, let me give you the floor to build on the point you just referenced, because, yes, we were discussing this in breaking coverage over the weekend, but you call a doctor to do one thing, you know, and it's different than what you call a security guard for. But a security guard is still supposed to keep the place safe and avoid unnecessary injury and death. The soldiers who are only deployed in certain scenarios abroad, SEAL Team 6 or what have you, are supposed to be very effective at lethal force. We have a system about when they are sent. But that's what they're sent for. So what position does it, as you said, does it put them in if you're supposed to do a different job on the home front than what you were trained for years to do, which is under the right authority, kill precisely.
It puts them in, I think, the worst situation imaginable. Being deployed overseas to Iraq or Afghanistan is actually more clear than being deployed to Los Angeles right now. This is a place with no clear mission, with no rules of engagement, a lack of oversight and coordination, a lack of public accountability. It is a recipe for disaster, and it is a recipe to remove the popularity of the American military that we've worked for decades to rebuild after Vietnam. This is shooting a hole in all of that. Every 18-year-old that's in the National Guard deserves the respect and support of the entire American public. And whether they're in SEAL Team 6 or they're in the California National Guard, they are less trusted right now. They are less respected. They feel overly politicized. And even if it's only with a portion of the American people, that's unnecessary and I think very bad, not just for our military and for Los Angeles, but it's very bad for our democracy. The all-volunteer military is great for our military, but in many ways it's not great for our democracy. And this is a point where that military-civil divide is really, really dangerous and could go sideways in any number of ways, especially if the president doesn't communicate it, doesn't consistently convey the mission and the clarity and keep the American people updated and responsive to their very reasonable questions like the one you just showed about this one example in Compton.